Greetings this evening. This is Doc Ock coming at you live and direct from Black Facts Headquarters Central with another evening of storytelling on the first day of a new year. For some people. For other people, it's simply April Fool's Day. But for every April Fool, there's an April rule. And the rule is, be careful who you call a fool. That's our rule for today. Now, as always, we need everybody out there to go ahead and give us a like, give us a thumbs up, and of course, please don't forget to subscribe below if you haven't already. And also, share with your family and your friends, because that always helps to mend some of those broken fences out there. Yes, go ahead and mend your fences. Build those bridges. Don't burn them down on your way out of town. Meanwhile, let's go ahead and do our proverb for tonight. We said this month we're going to focus on key Swahili proverbs, and so we got one for you tonight. It goes like this. Mfamaji haachi kutapatapa. Mfamaji haachi kutapatapa. And that means that if you're drowning, you're going to be thrashing all around. If you're drowning, the drowning man will grab his straws if he can. Anything to try to keep him from going down for the third time. And in this case, we're going to be, for this month, we're going to be featuring this little book right here, okay, the Young Reader's edition of a book called Never Caught, the story of Ona Judge. So we're going to be reading from this book, the story of Ona Judge. That's not the story of On a Judge, but Ona, okay, Ona. I don't know why she has that name. Maybe we'll find out as we read along. But it's the story of a young lady who was a slave on George Washington's plantation. So we're going to read about a historical fiction. This is not an autobiography or anything, but we're reading some historical fiction about someone who was quite familiar with George Washington and all of his ways, but from a different perspective than anybody else who you might have heard from previously. So let's go ahead and check out the story of Ona Judge, George and Martha Washington's courageous slave who dared to run away. That's what she did. She ran away. All right. So let's see what it says here. You know what? We've got enough time because this book is only 15 chapters, and it looks like we'll be able to read at least one, or if not one chapter, or at least a half a chapter a night. So we got plenty of time. So I'm going to read the introductory flap here. On Saturday, May 21st, 1796, Ona Judge, a 22-year-old slave of President George Washington, and his wife Martha escaped the president's Philadelphia mansion and never looked back. So, historical note for you non-history buffs out there. George Washington never did live in the White House, nor did his wife. Neither one of them ever did live in the White House. Why? Because they hadn't built it yet. They were still building the capital city itself. So the mansion, the White House, was not ready for occupancy yet. So at that time, the capital of the United States was not Washington, D.C., but rather Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, the city of brotherly love. And in this city, since it was in the great state of Pennsylvania, that meant that there was no slavery in that city. However, a slaveholder from the South could bring a slave into Washington, into Philadelphia, into the state of Pennsylvania, and hold them in slavery for 6 months. At that time, if they kept them there for longer than 6 months, then they would have to send them. They would have to, in order to avoid having to set them free, they'd have to send them back to their slave state, their home state, every 6 months. And so Ona Judge was one of those slaves that George Washington and his wife Martha had been shuttling back and forth between Philadelphia and their home state of Virginia for quite some time. And apparently Ona got tired of it. So she was born into a life of slavery. She grew up in the shadows, both at the Washington's residence and in the first few decades of this new country, the United States of America. But times were changing. Although George Washington held incredibly conflicted views on the institution of slavery, more and more citizens and political figures were becoming vocal opponents of slavery in the U.S. After moving north with the Washingtons and interacting with Philadelphia's large free black community, Ona observed what freedom could be like. She got up there in Philadelphia and started liking being free. Martha Washington's decision to give Ona to her granddaughter as a wedding gift propelled Ona into action. That's right, they were going to give this girl as a wedding gift to her granddaughter. She knew she had to go, risking everything, including her life, if she wanted to live as a free person. In this young reader's edition of the National Book Award finalist, Never Caught, authors Erica Armstrong Dunbar and Kathleen Van Cleve provide an intimate glimpse into the life of Ona Judge, from her childhood to her time with the Washingtons and living in the slave quarters to her ultimate escape to New Hampshire. Readers will learn more about this little-known but powerful figure in history and Ona's incredible journey to freedom. Now, she wasn't the only Washington slave that ran away. There were some other ones too. I think the other one, Jupiter. There was another one, a cook by the name of Jupiter. He ran away. He didn't get caught either. There were a number of these slaves on the Washington plantation that weren't happy with life on the Washington plantation or being shuttled back and forth between Philly and Virginia. So she was not alone. My daughter and I, one of my daughters and I, we were able to visit the what's the name of it? Mount Vernon, where where Ona Judge had been enslaved at. One of the places where she had been enslaved at. We were able to visit there, and we did it on George Washington's birthday. That's what I did one year for my birthday. I went to go visit his house to see where they lived at on his birthday. And it was very revealing, very interesting trip. And I do see you out there, Tony. I would go ahead and wave at you. Good to have you on board. So, I'm going to read. There's an author's note here. And I do see that I was wrong about the number of chapters. It's actually 26. But we'll have enough time to read the whole book. So I'm going to read the author's note tonight. And I'll start reading from, and I'll read this first little chapter here. Is this a chapter? The introduction. And I'll read the introduction, the author's note and the introduction. And then tomorrow night, we'll get started with the story for real. Okay? Yeah, not only we're going to read about her freeing herself, we're going to help you free your mind at the same time. Dear reader, I'm delighted that your eyes have met these words. You are about to encounter a story of bravery and heroism that will make you think differently about everything you ever learned regarding American history. This is a book about a young woman who, in the face of great difficulty, did what no one imagined possible. You're about to meet Ona Judge, a young, enslaved woman who was the human property of two of the most well-known people in the history of the United States of America. Ona was enslaved by George and Martha Washington. Important to point out, she was owned by both of them, not just one or the other. I use the word enslaved a lot throughout this book. It is a word that reminds us that millions of people were brought to America against their will from Africa and later the Caribbean. These people were enslaved. That is, they were forced to become slaves. It was an act that was placed upon them by others. When you look up the word slave in the dictionary, it says the following: a person who is the legal property of another and is forced to obey them. To be a slave in the USA usually meant that you would spend your entire life in bondage. Enslaved men and women were not allowed to legally marry. They did fall in love and pick their own husbands and wives, but it was illegal to teach Southern slaves how to read or write, and for hundreds of years, millions of black people were sold away from their families, beaten, whipped, and sometimes killed. There's no way to ease into the topic of American slavery. Slavery was brutal. Slavery was immoral. Slavery was an unjust system that kept black people at the bottom of society's social ladder. While all of this can be uncomfortable to read about and discuss, we must do so. If we want to build a better present and future, we must recognize and understand the problems of the past. Young readers are exactly the people who need to know this history. This book is for readers who are in elementary and middle school, and it will prepare them for history in high school and beyond. I also wrote this book for teachers. Teachers are champions. It is my wish that more historians will write for young readers so that teachers can have a variety of books for their classrooms. Ona's story tells us what it was like to be enslaved when this nation was first founded. Her life begins as a slave on the Washington's Mount Vernon estate in Virginia and ends with her living as a free woman in New Hampshire. Ona lived a long life and experienced many tragedies, but she also found love and joy in the midst of great despair. Ona was a survivor. It gives me great pride to introduce Ona Marie Judge to a world of younger readers. I hope that everyone who reads these pages will find strength in Ona's courage. And that's a note from Erica Armstrong Dunbar. So, she also wanted to note that there are many documents used in writing this book, and they're called primary sources, but they often include words that are spelled incorrectly and phrases that are grammatically incorrect. And she decided to alter some of the quotes just to make them easier to read. So, just a few things you want to keep in mind as you're listening to me read this book to you, in case you don't have your own copy yet. Introduction: The Escape. Ona Marie Judge, a slave since birth to George and Martha Washington, didn't typically serve dinner to her owners. It was the one time a day when she didn't have to worry whether she was quiet enough or helpful enough or invisible enough. The kitchen staff dealt with meals, not her. Usually, Ona was upstairs or outside in the back kitchen, treasuring her moments away from her 24/7 life of slavery. On Saturday, May 21st, 1796, this changes. Watching the dining room from the hallway of the president's house in Philadelphia, Ona's eyes flit back and forth between George and Martha, perhaps eating their salt fish, drinking their wine, discussing things she can't hear. It is time, now or never. She has made a decision, and now the only question is whether she will have the guts to go through with it. Escape. She takes a deep breath. A force inside her compels her to move down the hallway toward the back of the house. Each step she takes brings clarity and strength. Just move, Ona. Just move. She reaches the back door. Maybe the enslaved chef, Hercules, gives her a slight nod. Maybe he knows what she's about to do. Then again, maybe he doesn't notice her at all. Ona does not stop. She keeps moving, her breath fast, her vision startlingly clear. pull the door open, go outside, head to the docks, move. If she is caught, no, she can't let herself think about that. Not now. She starts to walk, or does she run? Does she look back? Does she grimace or frown or smile? We can't know for sure. Security cameras are still hundreds of years in the future. All Ona knows for sure is that she is taking the biggest risk of her life and needs to move quickly. To get to the nearby docks, built against the banks of the Delaware River, for 5 city blocks, her head down, her heart probably beating faster than it ever has before, she walks and walks until she ends up on board a ship called the Nancy, headed far away. Ona has no idea where she's going. She has lived with the Washingtons for her entire life. Yet soon, there she is, against the ship's railing, alone, wind skimming her face. She's trusting blindly in the white ship captain and her free black friends who have helped her escape. Fear of being caught, of being whipped, of being a slave for the remainder of her life must make her feel like she's wearing a blanket of fire around her neck. Looking out at the turbulent waves of the Atlantic Ocean, Ona Marie Judge, this brave, trailblazing young woman, has one thought above all else, flaming through her mind. I is free. End of story for tonight. We will continue tomorrow night. And I see EP Iroko there. How you doing, EP? So, yeah, so that's our introduction to the story of Ona Judge. Somebody I've heard about for a little while, known her about it for a little while, but have yet to read her story. So I'm reading it and getting the straight scoop on Ona Judge, just like you. So we're going to do it together. Join us. We're going to be here reading her story for the next 30 days. It's going to take us at least till the end of April. So make sure to tune in every night. Good reason to go ahead and subscribe right now. And if you haven't done it yet, go ahead and give us a like and a thumbs up. Let me also say one last thing to all you little children. Y'all about ready to go ahead and take your little heads and put it on your little pillow on your little bed? Because that's what time it is. It's time to lay down your little head and wait for the sun to rise. Till you feel those sunbeams beaming down on your eyes. Just keep those eyes closed. And don't wiggle your toes. Wait for the sun to rise. And when it does, seize the day. Because it's a brand new day. In the meantime, we'll be back here tomorrow at high noon. We will see y'all then. In the meantime, peace out with a grin from your ear to your chin, because we're going to help y'all be able to win. That's right. Peace out.